As you go out, the finger piers look like this. So you can see these nice clean piers, and again, a lot of these wider slips would have pilings in between them, so you could have two boats within those slips, and you tie off to the pilings, and you're all set. So that's what we envision on this plan for piers. Another thing we talked about at the first unit was the very poor pedestrian flow through the property. If I'm walking from High Street down this footbridge to here, and I want to continue going straight, I'm dumped very unceremoniously into this kind of random parking lot. If I want to come around here, I can do it if the water's low enough, and then I get to here. And you're dumped in no man's land again. But the trail continues right here, and again dumps you to nowhere. So this plan shows two new routes through the property. One would be basically raising the grade of this entire area to the height of the fixed pier on Candy Street, which I've only seen underwater at the most extreme hurricane tides. It was underwater about this much during Sandy. I think it's been underwater a little bit during another hurricane, but otherwise, this is pretty much high and dry. We want to raise the entire grade here to that height. You have a 12-foot walkway of pervious pavers that runs around the perimeter of this entire property, around a newly sited boat ramp, and then across here to a new extension that we envision, going in front of the condominiums at Scotts Point and joining it to Wilma Park. We also have another pedestrian connection with a brick walkway here that goes to a new green strip just on the south of this private residence, around a newly sited marina store to this existing brick walkway on Front Street, and that would also bring you into Wilma Park. So again, new pedestrian amenities, improved flow through the area, a more direct connection to Wilma Park. Furthermore, we're showing the marina store, which is currently sited here, being moved out of the flood zone to the high ground, which creates this large, open, multi-purpose plaza, for lack of a better term, that could serve multiple purposes. It could just be a meeting place where people sit on benches and enjoy the view of the river. You could have little musical, acoustic acts down there and set out chairs and have little concerts here. Maybe the Fish Whistle has an interest in using this space. I've yet to hear from them, but I hope to very soon. This, to me, it doesn't look very spectacular in this drawing, but that can have a multitude of uses. Not only does it open it up for public use, it also cleans up the gas tanks, the dumpster that's always been there, and really creates a nice, attractive space that becomes a focal point of that walkway rather than this random corner that's kind of eaten up by a bunch of stuff. So again, looking at that pedestrian flow, here's the dream scenario. So this kind of already exists, and you kind of get dumped right there. We envision basically making this new connection here, and again, a 12-foot wide walkway all the way around. That's a pretty wide walkway. Connecting to this existing trail here at Wilma Park, and assuming the college plays ball with the town, eventually hooking up to an extended waterfront walk that wraps all the way through the Algid Oil property, perhaps through Stepney, and then circling back around into the historic district. So you have this really neat loop that goes along the river, back through the historic lands of Stepney, and back into our historic marketplace, strengthening that marketplace. Let's talk about the boat ramp real quick. Currently, the boat ramp is right here. When I launch my boat, I launch here, and I ram right into this finger pier. It's not a deal breaker. I've been doing it for 23 years, but it's certainly not an ideal situation. I thought that we had a consensus to keep the boat ramp, and when we decided that, I tried to let everyone know that has significant ramifications on what we can do with the space. Because when you drive a truck with a trailer, that's a 30 to 40 foot long, big old vehicle that needs to park somewhere. But anyway, what we discussed with the location of the ramp was centering it more with the slips, so that when you launch your boat, it looks more like this. So you launch your boat, you have a nice clear shot, you can launch and pull into this little thing when you tie up and move your trailer, and then you have a nice clear shot out to the river. So, let's say I come in, and I launch my boat, and I need to park. This is where I got a lot of feedback already. We are showing trailer parking right there. That's the easiest place to do it. It makes a lot of sense from a logistical standpoint. Maybe aesthetically it's not the best use of this property, and you can tell me about that in about 10 minutes. But what we're showing is basically 12 to 14 parking spaces right here with permeable pavers. So if you pull out, and you can either fan out to the right or fan out to the left. And then as you enter or exit, we also show a new ingress and egress point here on Front Street so that not everybody is getting crammed into this one opening. If you want a frame of reference for what trailer parking looks like, I have a visual aid right out in front of the shed. I drove my truck and my whaler. I have no plans to go boating, but that's a 17-foot boat attached to a truck. That's about a 30-foot long thing to park. And imagine if you were trailing a 25-foot boat with a long bed truck, add another 10 feet to that. No matter how we slice and dice it, we're keeping the boat ramp. Whether we put the parking here or off-site, it's a space eater, and there's no way around it. So if you have a better idea, please speak up tonight. Marina store. We talked a lot at the first charrette about how this marina store, this is one of the prime areas of flooding. My concern is even after we raise the grade, none of this area sits on bedrock. The grade was raised actually at the foot of Cannon Street less than 10 years ago, and if you walk that trail, you'll see that it's slanting at about a 6-inch incline. That's all happened very recently. My concern is we raise this whole grade and it continues to sink. So if it's up to me, anything the town owns goes up on the high ground out of that flood zone. And that's what this plan shows. It shows this marina store being relocated into an expanded Williams Marine building up on the high ground, right over there. This building would then house marina needs. It would have bathrooms and showers for the patrons, perhaps public restrooms. It could potentially serve other uses that we can explore later. So what we show is this disappearing, this turning into a plaza, and the marina store moving up to high ground right across the driveway there. So again, here's where the marina store currently sits. This plan shows it sitting up here. And you might say, hey, if I buy gas here, I don't want to walk all the way up here to pay somebody. So we have a small shed. This is the very common practice at marinas where they have kind of an outpost for one employee to be out, either out on the end of the dock sometimes or at the foot of the dock to help people get in and out of their slips, collect money, collect gas money, etc. So that's what that little square is right there. All right, kayaks. People asked about kayaks and felt like we needed a more kayak area. We do show kayak storage right here. We could certainly negotiate over how much of this area might be used for kayak, or if we want a little shed where somebody rents kayaks. And we have a kayak launch here on the downriver side of this pier, and the idea is that you launch here, and you're kind of out of the main trafficked area of the marina. You could also theoretically walk kayaks to Wilmer Park, or to the floating dock at Cannon Street, although I would think generally human nature is you're going to do the easiest thing and pop it in right there. Green space. We talked about the fact, if you look at, here's the fish whistle property, here's a private residence, here's the marina property. There's almost not a single blade of grass in this entire piece of property. So when it rains, all the runoff goes directly into the river with absolutely no filtration whatsoever. So one of the things we show is green strips generally around the perimeter of the property. If you're wondering what SWM is, that's not swim area, that's stormwater management area. So I know these look like green blobs. I would have loved to have been able to give this to South Fork Studios and Miles Bernard and have him draw what it might potentially look like. That's not a particularly impressive looking green space, but imagine those green spaces with, black-eyed Susans and marsh hibiscus and, crepe, native plantings, native grasses that filter out that stormwater. We also show removing this green shed, which is also a hot button issue, and having a large green space up here. You can see where it says art area. That came out in part of the Chestertown Master Arts Plan, and they really were interested in having public art be a focal point somewhere on this marina. So what that could potentially be is a pocket park. That is not a small space. That's about twice the size of this building. It's probably bigger than Monument Park downtown. Perhaps in the middle, we have a piece of public art, sculpture, a statuary, a fountain, something that kids can climb on, surrounded by green space. Maybe there's trails coming in from different angles, intersecting in the middle, and people can gather there. That can all be decided later, but that's an idea that we had, is that could be kind of a focal point, an iconic piece of public art to serve as kind of a landmark for the marina. Here's just some things I pulled up off the internet. Here's our friends in Rock Hall. When you go to their public bulkhead, there's a picture of Stanley Van Zandt tonging oysters. You know, we have a guy, Swish Nicholson, up by the visitor center. Something like that, something as simple as that. Or we could be super ambitious and have a big copper schooner. This is a fountain that looks like a boat. I'm just throwing out ideas to let you understand that that's not just a big green blob. It's envisioned as a pocket park that could look very attractive and could be an iconic piece of this property, and people are amenable to the idea. What are some additional features? As I said, we want to raise the grade throughout the property up to the height of the Cannon Street Pier. On this plan, it shows the removal of this shed. It does show a marina without a working travel lift. We envision winter boat storage, but only for small trailer boats. If you're not going to have a travel lift, there's no reason to have a giant shed. And we still want some revenue for winter storage, but again, if we don't have a travel lift, it's not going to be for big boats. It's going to be for small vessels like that whaler that's right up there right now. Anywhere that we have town-owned parking or walkways, we envision pervious pavers. Again, it assists with the stormwater management. And lastly, some folks have said that you actually added parking. Why did you add parking? Well, if we're going to have winter boat storage, you need some place to put the boats. So we actually did add parking kind of around the perimeter here. So in the winter months, these could all be trailer boats. That could be a revenue stream for the town to help us pay the annual bond payment on this facility. So that, in a nutshell, are the critical components, as I see it, of the first stab at our concept plan. I don't know if Bill or Case have anything to add, anything I've said. Kind of talked a lot here. And that's it. At this point, I would love to hear anybody has any alternative ideas or suggestions. Do you have problems or something we're missing? And